What if I told you Johnny and Chanel's happy ending isn't just fragile, it's a ticking time bomb? Because right now, on Days of Our Lives, the dream they've been fighting for, building a family with baby Trey, could be ripped away in the most ruthless, calculated way possible. And the scariest part? It's not happening because of a court mistake or a legal technicality. It's happening because Sophia Choi is obsessed with destroying their family, and she's backing Melinda Trask into a corner so tight that Melinda may have no choice but to help. So let's break this down, step by step, because the writers are clearly laying the tracks for a disaster, and Johnny and Chanel may not even see it coming until it's too late. Duel fans have seen Sophia act messy, impulsive, even emotional, but this time feels different. This isn't panic. This isn't heartbreak. This is strategy. Sophia doesn't just run into Melinda Trask. She summons her to Bayview like she's calling a witness into court. And then she drops the first bomb with a calmness that's honestly chilling. She admits she has been faking her inability to speak for a while. Think about what that means. It means Sophia didn't just lie once. She maintained a performance, watched people react, watched adults make choices around her, and kept the mask on until it was useful to remove it. That's not a scared girl losing control. That's someone who enjoys having control. And then she reveals the real purpose of the confession. She isn't confessing to clear her conscience. She's doing it to trap Melinda. Because now Sophia can frame the situation however she wants. You knew and stayed quiet. You helped cover it up. You were involved in the adoption mess. You're compromised. Suddenly, Melinda isn't just listening to a confession. She's being handed a loaded weapon that Sophia can point right back at her whenever she wants. And Sophia makes the message crystal clear. Melinda has to stay silent about what she knows, what she saw, what she did, and what Sophia can expose. This isn't a request. It's not even a threat yet. It's worse than a threat, because Sophia doesn't need to shout to prove power. She just needs to remind Melinda, quietly, that there's a price for disobedience. And if you know Melinda Trask, you know why this is so dangerous. Melinda isn't some random character who can shrug this off. Her entire identity is built on being the law person, the one who knows the rules, respects the system, and holds people accountable. So when someone corners her with blackmail, Melinda won't react like a villain. She'll react like a professional who's terrified of losing everything. And when professionals panic, they don't always do the smart thing. They do the thing that buys time. They do the thing that reduces risk. They do the thing that seems manageable, even if it's illegal. That's what Sophia is counting on. Because Sophia doesn't need Melinda to want to help her. She just needs Melinda to feel like she has no other option. Here's the part people might miss. Melinda is not Sophia's main enemy. Melinda is Sophia's tool. The real target has always been Johnny and Chanel, specifically, the life they're building, the stability they're trying to claim, and the family they're daring to believe they deserve. Sophia has never truly accepted Chanel Dupree Demera. And she definitely never accepted the idea that Johnny and Chanel could raise her baby and become the kind of perfect little family that everyone roots for. So when Sophia tells Melinda what she expects, the wording is brutal. She wants Melinda to take Trey away and find new parents. Let that sink in. Not make sure he's safe. Not make sure he's cared for. Not make the best decision for his future. It's replace the parents. That reveals everything. This isn't about Trey's well-being. This is about ownership and punishment. Because if it were about Trey, Sophia would be asking questions like, are they stable? Are they prepared? Can they provide what he needs? But she's not asking. She's ordering. She's demanding an outcome. And there's an emotional reason she's doing that. Sophia can't stand the idea that Johnny and Chanel get to win. In her mind, The adoption is a theft. A humiliation. A storyline where she becomes the side character in her own life. So Sophia's plan is to flip the power dynamic. She wants Johnny and Chanel to feel what she feels, helpless, unheard, powerless. That's why she's escalating. Because erasing them from Trey's life isn't just a decision. It's revenge with paperwork. And the scariest part? Sophia isn't acting like someone making a painful maternal sacrifice. She's acting like someone who wants to hit them where it hurts the most, and watch them crumble. And when a character's goal becomes, make them suffer, they don't stop at one move. They keep going until the other side breaks. Now let's talk about the twist that turns this story from dramatic to explosive. Sophia realizes Chanel is pregnant. Not because Chanel announced it, because Sophia noticed the signs. The queasiness, the mint popping, the little details that usually would be harmless. But in a storyline like this, those little details become ammunition. Because Chanel being pregnant should be a beautiful thing. A symbol of hope. Proof that Johnny and Chanel are moving forward. But Sophia sees it through a completely different lens. Chanel isn't building a family. Chanel is replacing Trey. And once Sophia convinces herself of that, her mindset becomes dangerously simple. If they're going to replace him anyway, I'm justified taking him first. That is exactly how villains rationalize cruelty. They don't say, I want to hurt them. They say, I'm preventing a worse outcome. They say, I'm doing what needs to be done. They say, I'm protecting someone. So now Chanel's pregnancy becomes the perfect story Sophia can sell, especially if she needs to sway Melinda or the legal system. They won't have time for Trey. Their attention will shift to the new baby. Trey will be pushed aside. This household is about to change. And notice how unfair that is. Plenty of families have more than one child. Plenty of parents can love a baby and a new pregnancy at the same time. But logic isn't the point. Perception is. And Sophia's perception is becoming an obsession. So now the pregnancy isn't just a joyful twist for Johnny and Chanel. It's a pressure point, a trigger, a reason for Sophia to go harder, faster, and more viciously. Because she believes she's racing against time. In Sophia's mind, the clock is ticking. If I don't take Trey back now, I'll lose my chance forever. That kind of urgency is how people do extreme things. And if Melinda is already being blackmailed, then Sophia doesn't even need a perfect plan. She just needs one opening. One moment of weakness. One small, illegal step that snowballs into a nightmare. And that's why this storyline feels so dangerous right now, because Chanel's pregnancy doesn't soften Sophia. It hardens her. It convinces her she's right. And when someone is convinced they're right, they stop caring who gets hurt. Let's talk about Melinda Trask, because she's the hinge this entire storyline swings on. Melinda isn't some reckless schemer who wakes up and chooses chaos. She's built her name on being sharp, disciplined, and, above, the messy choices other people make. Even when she bends the rules, she usually believes she's doing it for the system, for the greater good, or for what she considers justice. That's exactly why Sophia's blackmail is so effective. Because Sophia doesn't need to convince Melinda that the plan is right. She only needs to convince Melinda that resisting will destroy her life. And here's the nightmare. Sophia stayed silent about Melinda's role in the fake adoption drama. That means Melinda is walking around Salem with a secret hanging over her head like a guillotine. This isn't the kind of blackmail where Sophia has to make daily threats or send creepy messages. This is the kind with a long leash, because Sophia already has what she needs. A story that could be twisted, reframed, and weaponized at any moment. Sophia can imply, if I talk, you go down. If you don't help me, I will make sure everyone knows what you did. If you try to play hero, I'll ruin you first. And to someone like Melinda, ruin isn't just embarrassment. It's career ending. It's reputation annihilation. It's potentially criminal. So now Melinda is trapped in the most dangerous mental space. The space where you start bargaining with yourself. Not because you're evil, because you're scared. This is how it starts. Maybe I can delay things, just temporarily. Maybe I can adjust something behind the scenes and then fix it later. Maybe I can make one small move that keeps Sophia calm, and prevents something worse. But that's the trap Duel loves most. The trap where a character does something wrong, while telling themselves it's a controlled mistake. Because Melinda will believe she can manage it. She'll believe she can keep the fallout contained. And the audience knows what happens next in Salem. One small, illegal step becomes a chain reaction. One choice made under pressure becomes a disaster that can't be reversed. And if Melinda crosses that line, even once, Sophia doesn't just have leverage anymore. Sophia owns her. This is where the writing gets sneaky, because the show didn't just hint at trouble. It basically announced it. Johnny goes to Justin Kuriakis to talk about finalizing Trey's adoption, and Justin reassures him it'll be no big deal. Now, in real life, that reassurance might actually mean something. But in soap world, that's the kiss of death. Whenever a lawyer character says, "It'll be fine," the show is practically whispering, "Enjoy this calm moment, because the storm is already scheduled." And here's the key detail the writers intentionally spotlighted. Trey's adoption still hasn't been finalized. That's not a casual line. That's a plot device. That's the writers leaving a door unlocked on purpose. Because once an adoption is finalized, the battle becomes much harder. But if it's not finalized, then it's vulnerable to delays, objections, and legal interference. And Sophia doesn't need a dramatic kidnapping to win. She just needs access to the weak point. One missing step, one stalled document, one concern filed at the right time. The terrifying part is how fast it can flip. One day Johnny and Chanel are planning a future. They're decorating, they're bonding, they're settling into the idea that Trey is truly theirs. Then, suddenly, they're standing in a courthouse hallway, feeling the ground disappear under their feet, because someone has raised an issue that puts everything on pause. And that's the most painful kind of heartbreak. Not the kind where you lose someone instantly. The kind where you're told, coldly and officially, until this is resolved, you don't get to keep him. At that point, Johnny and Chanel aren't parents in the system's eyes. They're just people arguing with process, pleading for time, begging the law not to erase the family they've already built emotionally. And Sophia knows that. That's why she's smiling. So what does sabotage actually look like if Melinda is forced to help? Because the show can do this in multiple ways, and the scariest versions are the ones that feel realistic. Option A. Legal stalling that looks normal. Melinda doesn't have to falsify anything at first. She can simply slow things down. We're missing a required filing. We need an additional review. The judge wants more documentation. There's been a delay in processing. And Johnny and Chanel might not even panic at first, because delays happen. That's what makes it brilliant and cruel. Sophia doesn't need a dramatic move. She just needs time. Because the longer things drag out, the easier it is to create doubt, and the harder it becomes for Johnny and Chanel to feel secure. Option B. A surprise legal challenge that forces a hearing. This is where the storyline can get explosive. Suddenly someone questions the adoption, Sophia herself, or someone tied to her, claiming something that forces the court to step in. It could be framed as, the adoption process wasn't handled correctly. There was deception involved. The consent isn't valid. The child's best interests require review. It doesn't even have to be true. It only has to be serious enough to trigger action. And once the court gets involved, Johnny and Chanel lose control of the timeline. Now they're reacting, not planning. Option C. The character assassination play. This is where Sophia weaponizes Chanel's pregnancy. In a twisted narrative, Sophia could push the idea that the pregnancy equals instability. Their focus will shift. They're overwhelmed. They're emotionally volatile. They only wanted Trey until they could have their own. It's disgusting, but it's effective, because it's an emotional argument disguised as concern. And if Melinda is cornered, she could help shake that story, subtly guiding how it's presented, what's emphasized, what gets flagged as an issue. Option D. The ultimate soap horror. Sudden removal by the system. This is the most traumatic scenario because it feels like a kidnapping, without anyone kidnapping him. Imagine Johnny and Chanel thinking they have a normal day ahead. Then they get hit with something official. A court order. A legal directive. A sudden intervention. They come home, and Trey is gone. Not because Sophia physically took him, but because the system did. And that's what makes it terrifying. You can't punch paperwork. You can't chase a court order down the street. You can't scream your way past legal procedure. All you can do is stand there, helpless, while your family is treated like a case file. And that's where this story becomes a legal nightmare. Johnny and Chanel have to fight with evidence, timing, and credibility, while Sophia fights with manipulation, leverage, and pressure. And in Salem, the person who controls the narrative usually wins, at least for a while. If this adoption unravels, the pain won't just be sad. It'll be psychological. Johnny will feel like a DiMera curse followed him into fatherhood. Like happiness is something he's not allowed to keep. Chanel will feel betrayed by the idea that her pregnancy, something meant to be a blessing, may have become the excuse someone used to take Trey away. And if Trey is removed, even temporarily, that could push them into a spiral. Rage, desperation, guilt, and that horrible question, did we celebrate too soon? That's the heartbreak duel is setting up. A small family dream, destroyed in slow motion. And here's the most chilling possibility. Sophia may not just want Trey back. She may want Johnny and Chanel to break. Because if she can't control the story, she'll control the fallout. So keep your eyes on Melinda, because she's the pressure point. And keep your eyes on that unfinished adoption, because that's the crack in the foundation. Because the moment Sophia turns that crack into a collapse, Johnny and Chanel won't just lose paperwork. They may lose the child they already love like their own. And that kind of heartbreak? It changes people.